does.
So I think that is the last under me. And then do we move on to old business?
I think old business is next. All right. Speaking of bylaws, man, right on point. Status review of the Jefferson County Development Authority bylaws. We have the document here. Do you want to do an overview, Eddie, or?
Sure.
Let's see, Kristen.
So since this was presented, I think sometime during the summer, and since that time, of course, there's been change at the Development Authority, and we now have Krista over there, which is fantastic. They're down one staffer, and then also just regionally staffing has changed. And so in speaking with staff, we should really look at these bylaws and maybe make some changes. One, to be consistent with legislation that passed in the last legislative session, number one. And number two, remove the burden of staff holding multiple meetings. Just to let you know, we hold 2 meetings a month. The JCDA holds, I think, 6 meetings a month, and they are holding way more meetings than we are. So when we look at their, first, if we go down membership, I think. So this one says appointment of members, and that the Jefferson County Development Authority shall consist of voting members. And, oh, so there are 2. Yeah, so this is on the first page, section 1 and section 2. So under the code, the board has between 12 and 21 members. My recommendation is that you don't have 12 members, because then you can have tie. So you should have something more than that. Currently, it consists of 15. Again, the goal is to reduce the burden on the staff so that they can do economic development, in addition to running a very large board. You're only 6 and you feel very large to me. And so 15 feels a little overwhelming at times. And then the next is the makeup of the members. So here it goes through several of the members' makeups, because there were prescriptions in code previously that were removed in the last legislative session. We also had motions in the past to change what the makeup of that board was. When we're in such a small community, when you put so many prescriptions on a board, it becomes very difficult to find board members. And these smaller boards, we've talked about that it can be hard to find them. Planning Commission, everybody wants to go to Planning Commission. There's nothing prescriptive about that. JCDA has some big time definitions. Like labor is a really hard one to fill. It's really hard to find that one. And now you don't need any, you can find just the best people instead of the best people in specific roles. Additionally, as this board has come up, people consistently ask me, what is a business representative? What are the requirements of being a business representative? And there are none. There were none under code. There were none under our resolution. So it's just a very confusing provision. What does industry mean? No one knows. Do you have to work in industry? Who knows? Same thing with labor. Do you have to be a member of a labor union? Do you have to represent a bunch of people working people? We have someone who represents a bunch of veterans right now, because that's the closest we could come. So as you look at this, those are the 2 big things that come up to me. Are we should remove the prescriptions of who sits on the board to be more consistent with what code says. And then in meeting with that director about, I think it is under committees, if I remember it correctly, and then the time and place of meetings.
So the only requirement as to the identity of someone sitting on the board now is 1 member to represent the county commission. And beyond that, it's silent. So I think you have authority to just appoint as Eddie said, the best people that you think for the job.
Yeah, and been on that board multiple years. Agree with Eddie. It is hard to find somebody from labor, the union. And one time we had a pilot because we needed somebody. There's only one that applied, and then obviously being a pilot, there's some days he couldn't jump on a meeting because he was flying. Kind of a problem. So the legislature, as Eddie has mentioned, did away with all these requirements. I think we should do the same and make it easy. Then we won't have to have a rep from every city who we can never get. And then currently, how many vacancies do they have, or how many active board members do they have right now, or board members on there right now?
So we're coming up on the end, so you have a few people kind of parting out, especially because one became the mayor of Shepherdstown, and so he just resigned. We just removed the Ranson representative. The Bolivar rep isn't coming back. Harper's Ferry does want to. Charlestown is on there for a while. And you have 5 every year, you're appointing 5. So you have 5, and then you have the removal of 1 and the resignation of 1. So you just reduced by 7.
Okay. If the number, let's just say we go with an odd number, is 13 board members, is that including a county commission rep?
Correct.
I would include a county commission rep. Okay. All right.
So
And-
you could, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you could go, are you looking at the document?
Mhm.
Okay, section 2. You could really just leave the first sentence in there. The Jefferson County Commission shall appoint voting members of the authority and add pursuant to West Virginia Code 712(3). And then you could strike the rest of that off of page 1.
Okay.
Could we reduce the number of persons too, since we have so many leaving?
I think we should. I think it's.
What about
state-
9? I mean,
No,
that's a
the
plan.
state code says a minimum of 12.
It's got to be
Oh.
between 12 and 21.
So
I was thinking 13.
I was 13 would be a good number because it's an odd number.
Yeah,
Okay. And then being on that board, and here we are, we're talking about the development authority that has 6 meetings a month. We have 2 and do a lot of business in 2. They have committee meetings. Y'all been a couple yet this year, but the committee meetings always chat about things and then bring it back to the board. I think all the committee meetings, everything that's discussed at a committee meeting can just be discussed at the board, because committee meetings don't have authority to vote on it anyway. Right? So it's kind of like let's have a meeting, figure out what we're going to talk about at the regular meeting, or have a committee meeting. So my opinion is to do away with all the committees, because I also believe that it takes up so much time for the staff over there to do an agenda, then print the minutes, and then approve the minutes, and then have all these meetings. I think you're having a meeting just to have a meeting. My opinion would be to do away with all committees and just roll all those committee meetings, or those committee, like agriculture, talk about that at their, actually agriculture shouldn't even be on there. But legislative affairs, that should be all just talked about at the regular meeting anyway, in my opinion.
So in speaking to the director, she said that the executive committee does kind of what you just said, that they just have the meeting that they'll then redo again with the whole board. So that one wasn't as useful. But then with the other committees, she likes them. But moving them to quarterly meetings would make more sense, because right now they often don't have anything to talk about. And so they're publishing that the meeting's canceled when so it continues to do work for staff to cancel meetings, put out the public notice on the website. And so if you reduced it to quarterly and still continue to have the monthly board meetings, but then made these individual meetings quarterly, that worked for her.
So executive quarterly, or no executive at all?
No executive, and then quarterly.
For business development and government legislative affairs and ad hoc.
And they can always meet more than quarterly as needed. Any of the chairs can call a meeting if there's something that's
Special
needed.
meeting, yeah.
So there's just one standing.
Do they have ag committee too?
Yeah, so on page 7, you'll have section 3, which is the business development, and then you'll have 4, which is government and legislative
Oh, here we
affairs.
go.
5 is
Okay.
agricultural development, and then 6 is ad hoc committees.
Okay. All right, so just business. So she would be okay having them quarterly, and what
And
do you,
then she can hold them in between if there's a need, and they do I think they're probably the best committee. Maybe planning committee is also up there about publicizing and getting the information out when we do it.
All right.
There may also need to be some adjustments to the top of page 2, since it refers back to the specific jobs that were in the bottom of page 1. So there may need to be some massaging of the language there too.
So you
Reflect.
need to strike everything minus all members must be approved by the county commission and sworn by the county clerk before they can make motions or vote in any authority meeting.
All right. And the thought process is not necessarily need to have an agriculture committee, since that's something the ag service takes care of.
So that's up for you and the JCDA board.
All right. See, in the past, we had an agriculture rep on that board. We no longer have one. And so the extension service pretty much does agriculture development. That's pretty much what the state agriculture extension office does. I think it's redundant. My personal opinion, I felt like it was redundant to have that on the development board.
Yeah, and I think you have one person who's in the agricultural world, and that's Mary Catherine Robinson with Twin Ridge, but she also does things for Valley Health and Chamber of Commerce. She's kind of on everything. I don't know that she sits on the ag committee or she sits on business development and marketing, because she's kind of a guru of all things business.
Okay. All right. All right. So we need some motion, or you want us to want to do this?
And one other thing, where I gave a specific reference, 712.3, I think we should just reference back to the statute, generally 712.1 et sec. That would be in section 2 at the bottom of page.
So 712.3 or 712.1?
I'm going to say 712.1 et sec, meaning following. So the chapter.
712.1. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it'd say the Jefferson County Commission shall appoint voting members of the authority pursuant to West Virginia Code 712.1 et sec.
All right.
Before we move on to motions, I'm a little bit confused about process here. Madam Administrator, I'm a little bit confused about process. So this is old business status review of JCDA bylaws. Are they gonna send us a memo saying we want these changes? We're gonna.
So they did, and we referred it to legal counsel.
Mhm.
And we're bringing it back up now. So that, the next step, and I talked to Nathan, if you make changes, the next step, and how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly clear cut, but I think that maybe we draft a revised copy of the bylaws and send it over to the development and say, we recommend that, you all adopt these and,
Right.
and then you all can approve them.
Yeah, I at
We'll
least
see where
like
we
to
get
hear
from
their
it.
opinion. I mean, I'm fine with all the content that's been, but it just seems odd to me. Carving it up.
I also think maybe having them on an upcoming agenda. So we can have some back and forth.
Because
Yeah.
who approves the bylaws? Us or us? We approve that.
Right, but we could
Yeah.
get their input.
Yeah.
So this is a process you may have remembered that we went through, maybe 6 months ago or so. The planning commission sent its bylaws here. You had changes. The commission at that time, which may have consisted of slightly different makeup, had changes, and then you sent it back to the planning commission for the planning commission to incorporate your changes, and then they came back. And so I assumed that we are going with the same process, but that was the only bylaw back and forth between a commission and the board.
Yeah, it's just that here we're initiating the bylaw change and send it back to them. I think your idea is excellent to have some comments from them back.
Okay. All right. So I'll move a motion, try to get get a red line out. I'll move a motion to have a red line version of the Jefferson County Development bylaws sent over to the Development Authority to change the membership from 15 to 13. We will enact the legislative session and 712.1 basically would remove all how do I say it, Nathan? Voting, the representatives basically the 12 members will not have to be from any,
Classification.
Yeah, we're removing the bottom,
classification. Yeah.
the bottom of the section 2.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so,
Just
and,
leaving the first sentence with that modification.
yeah, we'll take the first sentence with that modification of 7-12-1. Basically, none of the members will have to be have any classification. And also,
And at the top of page 2, strike most of the rest of that out. Really, that kind of repeats a lot of stuff that's in the statute as far as the county commission's term and the county clerk swearing them in and stuff like that.
yeah, we'll have to clean all that up.
Yeah, you could probably get rid of most of all that.
Okay. And then also what I would like to do is strike executive committee and agriculture committee. Include only business development, marketing committee, government legislative affairs committee, and ad hoc committee to meet quarterly in here it says a time. I think it should be at a convenient time that's suited for the members of those committees. Right now it says, well, one, you have to meet the fourth Wednesday of the month at 3:00. That committee, there might be people in that committee that are not available at 3:00. I don't know. What do you think?
It says unless another time is approved and appropriately noticed. And I think that was the goal that was to have for the public. This is the anticipation that we'll have it there. But if you have someone who has, I don't know, school pickup at 3:00, then maybe you're holding it at 1:00 that week or something. And you notice it appropriately and.
Okay. All right. Fair enough then. All right. So that's my motion.
Did you get that, Lynn?
15 and 13 comply with 7-12-1. All right.
The last hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going for 15 to 13. We're going to comply with 7-12-1 under section 2. And we're only going to include 3 committees to meet quarterly. And those 3 committees to meet quarterly is business development, government and legislative affairs, and ad hoc committee.
And that was yeoman's work. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. And that concludes our business for today.